Howdy, my name is Josh. Now it is a sunny, finally a sunny Wednesday here in Central Oregon, and I'm on my way to Cascadia Vehicle Tents. Now if you were following along with the channel last year, you'll know that I ran a Falcon XL from Roofnest all of last year. Now as much as I liked that tent, it did have a few drawbacks, and the biggest one was that I couldn't keep the bedding in the tent when it was collapsed and I was on the move. That to me became essentially a non-negotiable benefit that a rooftop tent should have. And so at the end of last year, at the end of December 2022, I moved over to CVT because they were doing a giant sale with like 20% off their entire inventory, right? Now the tent that I originally slotted in to take over for the Roofnest was the CVT Mount Hood, double channel, large size. However, when I showed up to the showroom, the Mount Triumph caught my eye. In the end, I ended up going with the Triumph and have had that for about 4 months now. However, we are on the way over to CVT to exchange this Triumph for a Mount Hood. Now, most aluminum hardshell tents are going to be a forward clamshell design. And basically what that means is at the nose of the tent, there's going to be a set of hinges that allows it to open straight up at about a 45-degree angle. On this big open end over here, there's usually a big door going out the back that can be rolled up, and there will be a screen that'll allow you to look out, along with screens and doors on the sides. This is true for Roofnest, CVT, Alucab, you name it. Now this style of tent could easily be set up in 30, 45 seconds. Hook the ladder up, pop the tent open, set a couple of poles to hold the awning out over the rear door, and you're off to the races. Tear down in reverse, 90 seconds if you kind of have to jam the material back in as you close it. But I mean, they're instantaneous going up and nearly as instantaneous going down. In addition, you can park that clamshell into the wind if the wind is picking up and being annoying, to keep the wind noise and nonsense down at night. But you do need to be cognizant of getting the truck really level, because with that nose having the hinges, you want to have your feet in the front here unless you're an absolute psychopath. So if you park on a slope backwards and your head is pointing down, you're probably not going to enjoy it very much. Now this is kind of the point that the Mount Triumph enters the picture. The Mount Triumph opens sideways. Now this allows for a much, much larger main door. You have windows with awnings on either end. Because it opens to the side, you can sleep nose or tail essentially without any sort of consideration, as long as the truck is level side to side. Pretty sweet little benefit, right? And on the topic of benefits, the Triumph comes with some other ones too. One of which is a cool little skylight that'll allow natural light in the morning, where you can stargaze at night, and it can still be closed if you don't want either of those things going on. On top of that, the vestibule that goes over the main door has a zip-in feature along with a small track that allows the inclusion of included annex and awning. Now, in most cases, annexes and awnings are hundreds of dollars extra, and they don't come with the tent. So those added benefits are what enticed me to give this tent a shot. On paper, it could still do all of the things I want an aluminum hardshell tent to do. It's durable. It's low profile. I can keep bedding inside of it. It has crossbars that allow me to keep my kayak on top. It's lightweight. Setup and tear down is simple. Or is it? Now other types of tents open to the side, like a soft shell, or a polymer hard shell, like the iCamp or SkyCamp, for example. But those do not have crossbars, and they are not quick or as easy to set up and tear down. I set up the awning and the annex each one time, never used them again. Now, for people who already are used to using annexes regularly and are just maybe exploring another tent, the setup and teardown time is probably not going to bother them because they're never really quick to utilize. But for me, I found it pretty irritating. I just really don't get enough use out of an annex. I think with children, or if you had, wife, girlfriend, whatever, that wanted to shower and wanted the privacy, that would probably be a different story. I just don't have that use case. I also found that the annex and the awning were both a pain in the ass to get structurally sound and staked out and the whole 9 yards. So it was just kind of a production to get these things to work the way they were intended. It seems to me that if I want to be protected from the rain or the snow and winter or spring camping, my Easy Up can go up faster and easier than the On-In can. So there just wasn't a whole lot of use for it. Now, again, those two don't fit my personal use case, but I do still think there are benefits for consumers, because if you want something like that, you're getting it for free. I also found that setting up the support poles on the inside so that it can open laterally ended up taking a little bit more time than I would like. By no stretch did it take as long to set up as a soft shell or a ground tent. But man, by the time you get in there, set up the support poles and actually get your window poles out along with your on-in poles, you start to lose some of that efficiency, shall we say. Which again, to me, is one of the main benefits of going with an aluminum hard shell. Because yeah, setting up the sleeping platform or the Gazelle could be a bit of a pain in the ass. But it wasn't a multiple thousands of dollars pain in the ass. The benefits gained from moving over to a multiple $1,000 rooftop tent should realistically exceed the sum of their parts. So in a vacuum, a longer setup time isn't a deal breaker, but every single benefit that you lose in a rooftop tent decreases your return on investment, in my opinion. And significantly so, considering the price tag. All right, so this Mount Triumph is a hard shell aluminum rooftop tent, but it's not fast to set up like other hard shell aluminum rooftop tents. Well, what are the other benefits? So next benefit, you can store your bedding inside of the tent. That's very true. I kept a wool base blanket on top of the mattress. Then I had 2 0-degree Teton bags that just stayed in there full time. I've even added a little adventure blanket over the top in really cold weather when I didn't want to move over to like my -20 bag. Left that in there as well, along with pillows. Now this thing is still only like 7.5 inches closed and can house all that. That's awesome. Except for the fact that it is a giant condensation trap, worse than any single other tent I've ever used. And the main reason we're getting this exchange is that it's getting a warranty claim for leaking profusely. Now, I opened the tent last week at camp to find that the recent rain had permeated the tent and soaked my bags and the mattress down to the bone. Not great. Now, in fairness to CVT, I spoke with their customer service, who was very quick to respond, and they agreed that this was basically a manufacturing defect, and said, yeah, hey, we'll get you lined out with this exchange, get you going. Now, they also said that they have had a couple other instances of the same issue, and they are proactively working on it, including a new seal design. So, fair play to them. They have acknowledged the issue and are working on it. And even said, hey, if you wanted to be a guinea pig, we would be happy to install this new seal for you if you liked the tent and wanted to try it out. Again, there are a few other, if it wasn't obvious already, a few other things that added up that made me decide that this design was not for me. But again, they did try to make it right. And they are proactively working on that. So, as of right now, the tent is not on the market because they are working on that new design. But it is, from my understanding, coming back to market soon. So, the Mount Triumph is not dead. Now, there are some other improvements or advantages that the hood has over the Mount Triumph that I don't think are necessarily cons to the Mount Triumph, but they're things that I noticed when I was using it that I greatly missed or that I notably preferred on the style of the mount hood. So here in a minute, we'll go over the mount hood now that we just got done installing it. I just got to camp. We'll throw it up and I'll show you what those things are and kind of talk about why I like them better than the Triumph, even though they're not necessarily net negatives. Here is a con, not a huge one, but one I didn't mention yet. The mattress on the Mount Triumph, not great for me. Now, bear in mind, I'm 6'2", 220. I'm going to get hot spots on my shoulders, on my hips. Con for me, I don't think that's inherent. It is comfortable. It's not like it's, super thin or super flimsy, but it is not as good as what's in the hood, not as good as what was in the roof nest, not as what's good in even adjacent competitors like an iCamper, things of that nature. So if if you're top in the 200 range, you might find that mattress isn't quite what you're looking for. Now you can add a mattress topper. You can throw things in there. Just remember, there's always going to be a trade-off between how much of that stuff you can keep in there when it's closed. Another con for me, its wind resistance was, like the condensation, noticeably bad. Again, this is one of those things that is going to vary by your use case. I camp 12 months out of the year. I'm in the high desert, whether that's in the Pacific Northwest or even more so when I'm in the Rockies. That wind starts whipping. It will start moving, especially in shoulder season. And unfortunately, the Mount Triumph, its vestibule just never seems to actually be fully extended unless you put that awning on and guy those lines out to pull it back down. A little bit of a draft, a stiff breeze will start working that thing back up towards the tent body, which is already annoying, especially if it's raining a lot. I had this issue back in January in Central Oregon. It was just pissing rain everywhere for 2 days straight, and water's pooling all over it. With that wind moving that vestibule back, every time it did that, it would just pour water back over the door. So there was a time when I was reaching back into my back seat, right back here. That's where I keep the fridge. I was reaching in to grab a beer. It just happened to get a little bit of a breeze, folded that thing back, and just pooled water all over me, all over my hands, all over the fridge. So that's annoying. The windows on the nose and the tail of the Mount Triumph didn't fare much better. I had to loosen up the pole holders. Basically their bases where they sit in the T-track. I had to move those over to give it a more aggressive angle because they were kind of neutral. I had to tow them out so that way they wouldn't collapse or pull the rain flaps on the nose and tail for the windows off and fold onto themselves. Even with that all being done, a little bit of wind would catch all of those awnings, vestibule stuff, all of that, and just whip it around, make a hell of a lot of noise. It drove me nuts at night. Was enough to wake me up on more than one occasion. So if you are in a high wind environment or you camp in scenarios where there's going to be a lot of wind, keep that in mind. So I am not outright against the Mount Triumph. I'm not going to tell you, hey, don't buy this tent. Even with the current seal and the current setup, there is a limited account of the leaking issues that I've had. Take that for what it's worth. But it does exist. Now, let's operate under the assumption that the new seal, the thicker seal, is going to be more effective, and there is not going to be any leaking issues. I don't know that in of itself is going to be enough to sway me on like a big recommendation, because as best as with the tent open, the seal isn't really in play anymore anyway. So presumably you're still going to have condensation issues. It's still going to be less than ideal in the wind. And the setup time is still not going to be fantastic. I don't think they have, at least that I know of, no plans to like change the mattress out. So again, you're a big fella, a big gal. That mattress may not be super comfortable for you, but it does have benefits. It does have a use case. It does have a target audience. If you are a person that wants an annex, you don't want to spend $600 in addition to the price of your like $3,500, $3,600 roof nest, $4,200 alley cab, with the price of the Mount Triumph at like $3,200, whatever it is. Bear in mind, look at the date this video is submitted. This may change. You know how the economy's going. Whatever. Nonetheless, at its price point, it is a very competitive tent, and it is loaded with features that tents that are more expensive than it don't have. And it comes with free stuff, essentially, where you're getting that annex without paying extra. You are getting an awning that goes into that vestibule without paying extra money. Those are just features you're not going to get with these other tents. So, who is the Mount Triumph for? In my opinion, I think if you are what I would call a seasonal camper, if you're one of these people that says, hey, you know what? I don't think freezing my ass off is fun. I don't like getting wet and cold. So somewhere around Memorial Day or when the temperature gets back over 65, I head out. And once October-ish rolls around and those temperatures drop and it starts getting windy and wet again, I pack it up. Fair play. No judgment here. I'm not going to like hang a stigma on that. If you're a seasonal camper, by all means, get out and enjoy the better seasons. Don't be a crazy person like I am and just go out there when it's nice outside. I don't think that's a novel concept. If you're one of those people, you may really enjoy the Mount Triumph. Hold that thought. I need another beer. That said, if you're doing this year-round, Northern Arizona, Eastern Utah, Southern Colorado, Central Oregon, Western Wyoming, I don't know if you're going to want to roll the dice with the Mount Triumph with its behavior in that kind of weather. If you're looking for a lightweight rooftop tent that's not going to seriously screw your center of gravity and you want to go and like run the Rubicon, you're going to go and pal around backdoor and hit hammers and just like throw this thing on a trailer. You go camping 4 times a year. Same deal. This may be an awesome tent for you. And you can park it with the nose of the tail of the truck down at like 4 degrees and just stick your head up on either side and whatever, zonk out at the end of the day. Maybe you're going and doing, 15, 16-mile days. You're just smashing trails on foot. Or you're going and doing like hiking, fishing. It's just like long days out there on your own 2 legs, and you just want to be able to come back, hang out in the campground, or like hang out at the trailhead, pop a tent, and just be done with it. In summer, the Triumph is probably going to be awesome for you. It absolutely has a place, and it is by no stretch of the imagination a bad tent. If you told me, hey, I'm going to give you the like most honking soft shell tent full of every bell and whistle that can be had on a soft shell tent, or we're going to give you, a Maggiolina or a James Baroud or a whatever, fiberglass hard shell tent or this, that, the other. There's no competition. I would still take the Triumph without a moment's thought. I would take that over these other options because it is still an aluminum hard shell and it still boasts significant upgrades for me over those styles of tents. If that sounds like you, keep it in here. When it gets re-released and you're evaluating where to take your hard-earned dollars, I'm not going to tell anybody, hey, just no. Absolutely not. But it's not for me. Now, I do have something that is for me. Let's go over the Mount Hood now, and let's discuss what it brings to the table that is an improvement over the Mount Triumph, as well as what's an improvement over the roof nest that I replaced in the first place. All right, first things first. Interior room. The Mount Hood is 60 inches overall and is 56 or 57 inches of interior width. That is right there with my Roof Nest Falcon XL, and is wider than the Triumph by 3 or 4 inches. The Triumph is not a small tent interior-wise, but the Hood is even better. And Now we need to go back to that dynamic of the lateral versus the nose opening clamshell. Because when the Triumph opens to the side, what ends up happening is right over here, you need to stick a person. There's going to be less headroom and less adjustability for that person that's kind of here in the apex of the clamshell. Now, with the mount hood and with the nose style clamshell design on any tent, yes, it's tighter, but if you stick your feet down there, who cares? Now, each person, as they lay next to each other with a wider design, there is no shorter ceiling on either side. Those of you with kids, if it's you and a partner and you've got a youngster up in the tent, the mount hood is going to be pretty damn accommodating. Unfortunately, the Mount Triumph's boot bags hook into the T-Track channels on the exterior of the tent. It's not a bad design. I've never had them blow off in the middle of the night or anything like that. But they are potentially susceptible to that. Especially if you have like really lightweight, like if you're like my mids, like my Salomon Gen 3 mid ultras or a really lightweight boot. Even in summer, like I could go out somewhere at, you know, right above timberline. If that wind picks up like 35, it could grab those because they've got enough weight to get picked up and then yank them right off the track. And then they'd be, you know, off in the dirt or the mud or who knows what else for that matter. But the mount hood comes with boot bags that are on carabiners that you can loop into the ladder hooks. Speaking of the ladder hooks, there are a set on either side of the tent, by the way. Keep that in mind. You don't have to commit to one side or the other. That's pretty nifty in terms of being able to just pull into camp, get flat, and not have to consider, hey, is the ladder going to bump into this tree or into the fire pit or whatever? So that's a bigger plus than you would think, I promise you. The mount hood also puts the weatherproof door on the outside of the bug screen. This is another one of those things that seems pretty minuscule, but for me, again, is a lot more important than you would think. The Mount Triumph keeps the bug screen on the outside. Another big plus, interior storage. Now, the Triumph has pockets on the nose and the tail. And stick like, I'll take, you know, knife, I'll take flashlight, I'll take my headlamp, I'll just take all of that crap that I bring up into the tent at the end of the day, stick it in there and then pull it out, and that's fine. Like, it's adequate for that. The mount hood has like 3 pockets back behind your head and pockets up on either side of the front, so there's just a lot more storage. And let's talk about that pesky condensation. The mount hood has 3 interior vents. You can batten the hatches and still have those things vent because they have a pocket over the vent space. So it's still weatherproof and lets the air move. This is something you really can't replicate in the Mount Triumph. I've had an issue where the first night on a winter trip in that Mount Triumph, I had a lot of condensation. Tent was up, the sun came out a little bit, had everything open with like the bug screen so the air kept moving through, got rid of that condensation. And then the next night I said, okay, let me take my little USB powered fan, I'll crack a window and I'll move some air through and force it out of there. It got like unbelievably cold, and I mean colder than elk hunting in Colorado in late November cold. It was almost incomprehensible. So that wasn't great. Let's put it that way. It wasn't great. Here, I can more or less trap my heat without having to crack anything and still get those vents going. So that's really nice. I like that quite a bit. In addition, the ceiling, for lack of a better term, or what becomes the ceiling as the top hatch opens on this nose hinged clamshell design, is carpeted. And I do mean like recycled carpeting that you would use for things like a sleeping platform, for example. Now this is really good at fighting condensation. The Mount Triumph does not have that. The Mount Triumph has like that, it has almost kind of like adventure blanket material. And that does help retain heat pretty well. However, it is pretty prone to trapping moisture. Now, part of the reason my roof nest would not hold up the kayak consistently, it would do so pretty well when it was warm outside, but not when it was cold. The roof nest had a pretty decent amount of mileage on it. I bought it from a buddy, and it had its own set of mileage on there already. Over time, those struts are just going to get worn. Now, I don't need to do like the U-bar and the whole structure setup like I did in the Mount Triumph, but there is a support bar in the Mount Hood, which means these 450s will open with the kayak on there. That's not going to be a problem. But in a year and a half, I start blowing through those and they start getting fatigued. I can pop this independent support bar that will keep the ceiling or the roof, depending on how you want to look at it, from collapsing down. That'll drastically extend the life of the struts and make things really easy for me because it's out of the way and it does not take long to set up at all. If and when the kayak is not on there, I don't still have to set it up anyway. So, other considerations. Weight-wise, the Mount Hood is not at the back of the class. That honor or dishonor probably has to go to Alucab in their Expedition series, at least in tents of this size. For its competition, the Mount Hood is not at all bringing up the rear. It's not like leading the pack. It's not blowing away the competition. That honor has almost certainly got to go to Go Fast Campers. However, you can't leave your bags in the Go Fast Camper. So there are two color options. There's a black and a tan canvas material for the Mount Hood. If you like aesthetic choices like that, it's pretty neat. So starting just a couple weeks from now, we will be beginning a nearly month-long run. That is going to be Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, skipping Colorado, stop by the house, and then rendezvous with all of the gang in Colorado, and then lead some of them for their very first time, and the rest of them again down to New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and then finishing back in Oregon. So 7 states for just under a month. That's going to be a big one. Very much looking forward to that. If by some chance there's a big issue with the Mount Hood, then I will come back after that and, fire and brimstone. I assure you, I am not a shill. I have no connection to CVT, but I don't anticipate that happening. Let's plan on it not happening. And in that case, keep your eyes peeled, because that means there's going to be a very, 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 very nifty video dropping right after Memorial Day. I will put together a video for a very epic trip. You can look at that and see it here on this channel. And right before that trip kicks off, I will show you the highlights of March and April. These have been a couple pretty slow months on both counts, but always like to do a little camp vibe session. I'll post those up too, so keep your eyes peeled for that first. Until next time, friends, I appreciate you coming by. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, other things that I did not mention or things that should be considered for people looking to replace or upgrade a rooftop tent, or even people who are getting into their first rooftop tent. Or really, hell, I don't know. You can just tell me what songs I should be listening to on the trail. Let me know what you think. Appreciate you coming by. Till then, cheers.